If you have been watching my channel for a while, you know about the 24/7 store. So there's a store that's basically on the other side of town. I mean, not really on the other side of town, but like about 40 minutes by foot away, which is almost on the other side of town. And it stays open 24/7, at least it used to. I hope it still does, but I'm not completely sure. And every now and then I need to have some groceries or something of the sort when all the other stores are closed, and I have no other option than to go there. Now, today isn't really one of those occasions. I could relatively easily wait for like 8 hours until normal stores open, but my life would be improved if I could get some groceries right now. And since I want to get those groceries, I might as well go to the 24/7 store because it's kind of a fun adventure, right? It's kind of like a fun 2-hour long quest for something that's useful to me. Anyway, I have a few things to talk about because I've been trying to make more videos because I kind of said I would. I think maybe I don't know. I've been in the mood to make more videos lately, but most of them haven't really gone anywhere, and that's also because I'm not really that inspired, I guess. Like I've talked about this before too, countless times, but when it comes to how I make art, it's very dependent on inspiration, right? It's very dependent on having something I can latch onto and try to emulate with my own spin on it, I guess. And lately, no one has really been making those types of videos. Like No Thank You hasn't really been making any giant videos, and I have had a few ideas for like giant videos I could make, but I'm not someone who can make videos alone. I'm not someone who can independently get motivated to make art. So those videos just aren't gonna happen. Anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about is what happened earlier today, because my mom ordered a load of firewood. Now, last year we didn't have any firewood, and I think for a few years we haven't, like maybe 3 years, because once I moved out, my mom was like, okay, those might won't be at home to take care of, like, heating up the house when I'm away, right? So I should get like a radiator system that can have like water-based heating and keep the house warm, because Toadsmith isn't at home anymore because I had moved out. So then my mom got the radiators, and we haven't really used our fireplace very often since. However, she got new firewood because last year, I mean, I think this is a part of it, like, I'm sure it isn't the entirety of it. I'm sure that she also wanted firewood. But also, like, last year I was like, hey, I think we should use firewood to, like, warm up the place because it smells nice and it gives off a much better type of heat, right? Because when you heat your place up with radiators, it's a very, like, rough heat. Like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but with a fireplace, right, the location is very central and it's a very persistent type of warming. So when you have your fireplace going, it's just really nice. And also, like, the way that stone emits heat is somehow just more pleasant than the way that, like, metal does. Like, I can't explain this. Like, this is something that you just kind of have to feel. But like, it probably has something to do with like the moisture in there, where like radiators and fireplaces affect the moisture completely differently. But like, I don't know how it works exactly. Like, that's what I would assume is the culprit for me feeling this way. Anyway, but before that happened, it used to be a daily chore. Like even when I had moved out, because the place I moved to was also like heated by firewood. So since I was like maybe 11 or 12-ish, it was like a daily chore for me to get some firewood, because my mom didn't want to get the firewood every day, and that meant that on some days I would be the one getting the firewood. I think we went back and forth. Like I know it was something that I had to do like relatively often too. So when I was getting firewood, it was always really painful, because you have this like heavy wire frame thing that you're carrying, and you have to carry it all the way from the shed up the stairs and to the furnace, right? And since I was a kid, of course, I was like, no, I have to take the biggest loads of firewood possible, right? I couldn't just make 3 trips. I have to make 2 really fucking intense trips, because when you're a kid, you just think you don't have any time for anything ever. But yeah, so I used to like go through a ton of pain for it. I remember distinctly like the way that the lights lit up, right, with the motion sensors, and I remember like looking into my neighbors' windows and seeing my neighbors just warm, and they would often like be cuddling on the couch, because this was in the evening, right, and watching something, and I used to like really feel incredibly lonely when I saw that other people had that type of affection, because at that point in my life I had not experienced anything of the kind yet. And as time went on, I mean that's not true. Like I was very close with my dad during that point in my life. But you know what I mean? Like I hadn't been in anything that's even adjacent to a relationship or a friendship where the people involved are fine with physical contact or whatever. Right? I haven't had that. Anyway, not to say I did anything weird with my dad, right? It's just we were just fucking big chilling on a couch and watching movies like relatively regularly at that time. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is that I have these really distinct impressions of life during that time. Like I remember my neighbors getting mad at me because I scratched their doors with the firewood because I didn't notice at all, and like stuff like that. So here's a socialist sticker. It said under socialism or underwater, which is a fucking based ass sticker. Anyway, what the fuck was I saying? Yeah, so I have all of these really distinct memories, right? And today I was like, hey, I'm gonna go get some firewood. We have some firewood. It's getting kind of chilly. I can make a fire. I can make a nice cozy fire. And I didn't have to. I mean, I did turn the radiators on, but I could have turned like the radiators on and just kept them on, and not even thought about heating the apartment in any other way. But I was like, no, we have firewood. I enjoy life here way more when we have a nice fireplace that just keeps me warm. So I went over to the shed, right? Just walked to the shed, as you do, right? As normal people do. Got myself some firewood, walked back home, and I had this like really intense nostalgia the whole time. It was like a nostalgia for a pain that had disappeared, right? And that was the first time I've ever felt something like that, right? Like one of the most memorable videos I've made is Unlisted, and you can go and watch it if you like pay me. Like if you go to the Toadsmite Patreon and you give me money, you can see the fucking video. I mean, or you can just fucking DM me or whatever the fuck, because I don't actually care. and my Patreon is there only for optional support, and all the content from my Patreon is available if you just DM me. Like, this is something I don't talk about often, right? Because I don't shield my Patreon. I don't make a big deal out of it. But it's nice when I get to make some money off of spending time fucking making videos. So if you want to support me, I have a Patreon, and on my Patreon there are a bunch of unlisted videos, right, that I've made over time. And one of them is this video that I made after watching a Starman video, where he was talking about the fact that he misses being a child, even though it was mostly painful at the time, right? And that video was about me not understanding that, because my memories of being a child are mostly just remembering all the pain I had to go through, without any like actual nostalgia attached to it. But today I felt something like that for the first time, because it wasn't really a nostalgia for when I was a child, but it was more of a nostalgia for when I was less physically alone, if that makes sense. Because during that time period, I was always with my parents, basically. I was pretty much constantly with my mom or my dad, and my brother still lived here, and I was just more often in contact with people than I am now. And now, of course, I enjoy solitude a lot. But over the past year, I've honestly kind of worn myself out in solitude with how often I've been alone, and I do kind of miss when solitude was untenable, where it was something I actually had to value, where it was something I actually had to like seek out, instead of something that I just have all the time. Now, I think a part of this is also that my therapist has been on summer break, and I have a really great relationship with my therapist, even though again I have problems with the medicalization of like mental health in general. But I have a great relationship with my particular therapist, and I mean I have been going to parties and stuff, but like that's not really the same. Although I might hang out with some people like outside a venue soon, or just like chill with some people. Although that's not really established, and I'm really bad at communicating with people, and there's like a bunch of stuff to look forward to in the future where I'm less alone. But anyway, basically what I'm getting to is that was a really jarring experience for me. Just because I don't have any way to contextualize it. I don't have any way to interpret it. Because every other painful event I've been through, I can really easily come to terms with right now. Like, this wasn't always true, but as the person I am right now, I can just move on from pain, right? I can just forgive and go and live my own life instead of fixating on what could have been or anything like that. But in this particular instance, it feels like this memory is a memory of like a liminal space, I guess. Like it's or a memory without the liminal space, maybe. Because it feels like the last. I mean, the answer to this is just that I'm a teenager, right? Technically. But what I was about to say is like it feels like the last 5 years have kind of been like a transitional period, right? And then I realized, oh yeah, I'm literally 19. I guess I'm about to be 20 soon, right? And I'm about to like have moved on from like all this fucking bullshit I had to deal with. And I knew that this was coming, right? That was a big point of like fucking the 24-hour vlog, if you saw that one. And like partially when it comes to Behold the Love God too, right? It's just all a giant moving on and actually becoming a person who isn't forced to be on YouTube, you know. But it's like it's just odd today. And it's weird that I've already been making videos for a year and a half. Like I didn't think that this was a hobby I would have for this long. Like I thought this was something I would just kind of pick up and then just kind of eventually go away from. Like, I mean, I guess it's just something that I'll do intermittently for the foreseeable future now too. So basically, to put all of this in like real words, is I'm just kind of looking forward to not being a teenager anymore, because I've been rapidly growing over the past 3 years, I guess, yeah, and I feel like I'm pretty much capable of a lot more than I used to be now. And that's just a positive for me. Now another thing I wanted to talk about is how the current how the current reality of things becoming more and more representative rather than material can really be used for propaganda. Because okay, let me start from the start. Let me start like right from the very fucking start. So, do you know the fucking book that's the Society of the Spectacle, right? And like Simulation, Simulacra, and all of those fucking books, and all of those fucking video essays and speeches and everything in that general category, right? Hypernormalization is one of these, and other things, right? This is a popular leftist talking point, which is basically that the world has been transformed into a world of images, right? Like the self is no longer an experience, but rather a projected image for other people, right? And where things aren't things anymore, but rather representations of themselves through images, right? Like new fashions don't have anything to do with what would classically be considered like a fashion, right? Which is a like a general trend in high society, but rather fashions are manufactured according to like computed statistics and fucking specific designers who have the power to influence people into thinking that something is desirable, right? And so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. It's all of this shit, right? It's all of these images, all of these representations. And we all know how they affect people, right? We all know that it's really easy to manipulate someone's emotions if you do it through images and representations, because you can connect that to the representations and images associated with the self, right? You can connect like, if you go on this vacation, I'm telling you, your family will be happy, right? To the perpetual creeping thread that someone has over being unable to take care of their family because they spend so much time working, right? So then you can instead be like, okay, you spent all this time making money, and now you can use this money to make your family happy instead of having spent the time to make your family happy, right? It's a shortcut that you can buy basically in order to accomplish this specific goal. And all of these tactics are very powerful, right? Like for another is like makeup, right? where you will see women online being like, "Oh, you're saying that wearing makeup is something that's like imposed on women. You're saying that like makeup is something that might have negative consequences for like people. Okay, well, you don't wash yourself, you smell bad, you're crusty, right?" And stuff like that, just like absolute left field shit. Because someone dared to say that, hey, maybe you should consider not wearing makeup, right? And because the tactic, right, that creates such a result is a company being like, hey, you want to be attractive, right? Because being attractive is not just about whatever social acceptance. It's all about fucking attracting a partner. Actually, being attractive is a form of self-care, right? It's a it's a thing reminiscent of hygiene, right? If you use your makeup, you are more hygienic. You love yourself more, right? You can buy self-love by buying our products, and so on and so on and so on and so on, right? Because that connects it with people's primal insecurities, right? As it relates to being like unhygienic in company, right? Because that's dangerous. Oh, I'll smell bad. Oh, I'll be a carrier for some fucking disease if I'm unhygienic, right? Oh, I'll be socially rejected for good reason. Oh, I don't love myself, right? What's there to love about me? But if I can buy this new self, right? If I can use makeup to reinvent who I am, I could love that person, right? And this is incredibly effective because it doesn't just work on someone's instincts, right? Because many people have an instinct to use makeup to be more attractive to people, right? I mean, I have that instinct very often where I feel as if I should be using makeup, not for anything for myself, but rather for the sake of the people who might be seeing me, right? Like, I have that instinct relatively often. I mean, I generally don't do it because it's something I'm critical of, but that's a complete and practical instinct, right? Because if you're in a position where you want attraction of the people around you, right? Then you have to like, you don't have to, but there's a good reason to think that you can move towards that direction if you put this and that effort into it, right? Like you can nudge yourself like into being more acceptable, into being more attractive if you just use these products. Anyway, but it goes beyond that, right? Because now makeup is no longer a thing that you use. It's an image that you have attached to the self, right? It's an image of self-care, of self-love, of hygiene, of professionalism, of all of these things that people want to have. And since it's an image, it's very easy to internalize, right? It's very easy to connect with. And so on and so on and so on and so on. But I think what not enough people talk about is the advanced stage of images, right? Which is where we currently find ourselves. Because it's no longer just that you have um, all of these spectacles and images and whatever the fuck parasitizing off of your understandable human feelings and instincts, right? But rather, you have entire industries that are pretty much dedicated to inventing new experiences and new feelings. Because when you watch a movie, right, it's not a movie that can connect with a person anymore. Like, like try watching any recent movie, basically, like any popular one, and 9 times out of 10, the messaging of that movie doesn't apply to something that person might experience in their lives, right? Like this is one of the biggest problems I have with writing in general in the modern age, where I think people intentionally um, write things to not connect with people. Like for example, you can take I don't know Black Widow, right? You can examine the themes of that movie in connection to themes in other movies, or as a reference to other works of art, or maybe even as a reference to the zeitgeist of history, right? But what you can't really do is connect a normal human life with any of the experiences present in that movie, right? Because what the movie is about isn't about anything that a real person could go through, right? Like if a real person was sent into a fucking living nightmare torture camp for generating female spies, they wouldn't come out of it and be like, hey, I forgive you, mom and dad. We had fun, right? That's an emotion that would happen, right? But since a movie isn't about connecting with people, right? It wants to uh, present the image of family, because family is important, right? Family is something that we all think is the most important thing. So if you just present a spectacle that includes a family, it becomes a movie about family, right? Even though practically it doesn't actually explore any of those dynamics, it just says, hey, family is important. Or when you look at like how a lot of like modern cinema views killing, right? It's no longer that, hey, uh, like for example, if you watch westerns, like old westerns, they're very anti-killing in general, right? They very much have the message that, hey, look, we should avoid killing if you want a civilized society, because they have a very coherent moral stance, right? And that moral stance is, if you want a peaceful, civilized life, we should avoid murder, right? But what happens in Western movies, right? Eventually, right, the heroes of the story are forced against their own will to kill the enemies, right? This isn't coherent, right? Of course, this isn't a moral stance that you can really like extrapolate anything generally useful from, but it's something that can connect with people, right? Because a lot of people have anxieties about the state of the world, right? A lot of people are worried, right, about violence and so on and so on and so on. So what the movie can then say is like, hey, look, we are taking a spectacle of violence to empower an idea in people, right? Now that idea is just playing to a machismo, right, around doing what a man needs to do, and again, it's not particularly useful, but it's something that you can apply to yourself, right? Like the next time you're in a really difficult situation where you have to make a really difficult choice, right? You can refer back in your mind to like the Western movies, so right, and you can be like, okay, fucking Wyatt Earp or whoever the fuck managed to overcome a situation like this. I will also overcome because I am a person like that character, right? You can't do this with like the Black Widow, right? Because the message that has is, hey, forgive your family who basically human trafficked you into fucking uh, literal mind control based slavery. Well, but like mind control is like an allegory to like insecure men being abusive, actually. So that's bad, but like family is good. It's just all images. It's all images of images of images, right? it just plays into the zeitgeist. Like this is a problem for effectivism too, right? Where people will be like, oh, abuse is bad, right? Oh, whatever, but like, they won't acknowledge the root cause of the abuse in question, right? They'll just go like, oh, it's about mental health, or oh, it's about fucking, it's about fucking like someone having to learn to be better, or whatever the fuck. Like, no, abuse in almost all of its forms is an outgrowth of the system it finds itself in, right? Like when it comes to like domestic abuse or abuse in relationships, it's mostly caused by the fact that people view relationships as something that they should they should be beholden to, right? And that they have an obligation to put their whole lives into, right? And abuse doesn't come from like a personal defect. It comes from the fact that society in general values people who can put their own interests aside for the betterment of their relationships, because relationships are a more powerful image than personal happiness. And hey, remember what the message of the movie was? Oh yeah, it was that family is good, right? Completely incoherent. It doesn't think about these issues. It doesn't even like it's not even that it thought about these issues and came to the wrong conclusion. No, it just never actually put in like a single second of thought into, hey, maybe this movie contradicts itself from its very fucking premise, right? Maybe you can't have a coherent criticism of abuse by having the most spectacular image of abuse possible, while still basically having the same message that enables abuse, right? Or whatever, right? This is all just an example. I didn't actually mean to make it about how Black Widow is a bad movie. Yeah, though it's a really fucking bad movie. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to get to, the point I'm trying to get to is that the emotions expressed in these movies can only be understood through the context of other media, right? Because now when you start thinking of the Black Widow movie, right, and you go like, oh, what's a family movie, right? What's a genre family movie? Oh, it's a movie where you have like an awkward family situation, but like eventually everyone learns to love each other and grows from the uh, growing pains of being in a family and everyone learning their role, right? Oh, that's a family movie, right? That's an image of family I have. Oh, well, what's made against abuse? So there are all of these movies where you have like these controlling men, right, who are like really mean towards women, and the women feel bad about it, right, because that's abuse. Okay, but what if you have like this controlling man being like really mean against women? But that's an allegory to abuse that's coherent, right? And when you refer the emotions in the movie back to the emotions in other media, right? You can eventually pretend as if it has anything to say regarding how people live, right? But it just doesn't. Like it has pretty much no connection, right? And the thing with the system is that even though this is a particularly bad example, people can still feel emotions towards these narratives, right? It's not like these narratives are completely disconnected from what people experience, right? They can have an intimate connection with all of these stories that don't have any connection to human lives, right? And that's because mass media in general has managed to invent a new emotional palette, right? Mass media has literally created images of emotions that are so powerful that they can manage to supersede people's original emotions. Now, I'm gonna make it more personal before I explain this further. As many of you probably know, I don't feel things very intensely. I generally have a very very toned down emotional reaction to most situations, right? In general, of course, there are exceptions, and that's how I can measure having a relatively low emotional reaction. And on top of this, most of my emotions are things I feel almost entirely through my body, right? When I'm just like happy, right? I just feel like, oh, it's easier to move, right? I might feel a bit warm, right? I I might feel like it's like my body is lighter or whatever, right? So I go like, oh yeah, well, I feel happy because I can sense the signs of happiness in my body, right? Because human bodies respond to the emotions, or rather, human bodies respond to the same chemicals that generate emotions, and that's how I can distinguish most emotions because the chemicals are still being released. It's just my mind isn't really processing most of them as something that I'm feeling, other than on a physical level, right? And when I'm sad, it basically feels like I'm sick, right? It feels like, oh, I have to like lay in bed because it's harder to move my body, right? It's harder to like just get out of bed or whatever the fuck, right? And of course, there's a million other emotions and a million other reactions, but those are the most obvious ones. So those are the ones I'm gonna use as an example. And that's just the way that I feel emotions. I don't have a problem with it, right? I'm not like, oh, I should have normal emotions, right? Because there's no value in normalcy, right? There's no inherent need to chase after an ideal of happiness or an ideal of what a human should be. I'm completely fine being the person I am because there's no other person I could be. So anyway, but because I have these reactions, as a kid, I thought there had to be a sociopath, right? I thought I had to have some inherent emotional deficiency that made me a worse person than everyone else, because all the media I was surrounded by was only full of exaggerated emotions, right? It wasn't full of reactions to events, it wasn't full of anything that made sense, but rather it was an image of an emotion that I didn't really feel that intensely in the first place. And the image had become so intensified that my very subdued and very, very fucking physical reactions seemed like they had to be a measure of sociopathy, right? Sociopathy. Now, right now I know that that isn't a bad thing. Right now I know that if a person has ASPD, they're not a bad person, right? They're just a normal person, except they just don't have empathy and they might have similar emotional processing issues that I have. Other issues is wrong word. Or they might have some other, like, other form of not being able to really manage emotions or whatever. Like, I'm autistic, I personally happen to be relatively low empathy through my autism, right? Not saying that all autistic people are low empathy, it's just this particular autistic person is. And I don't really process emotions that well on like a mental level. Anyway, what the fuck am I talking about? Okay, yeah, so being surrounded by all of these really fucking intense images just completely warped my perspective on how humans exist, right? And a thing that really helped me to like break through this was watching older movies from like the 60s and 70s and earlier, where there wasn't any 100-year history of reference points in regards to what emotions in movies should be, right? It wasn't that, oh, if you have a sad song, it communicates that the audience is supposed to feel sad, because a sad song is the image of sadness that supersedes actual sadness, right? But rather, those movies tended to like chronicle events and tended to showcase people and why they reacted to something and how they reacted to something, and we're actually like enlightening in regards to how people feel feelings, right? Because they couldn't rely on this imaginary set of emotions. And also the story's open. I'm almost there. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling. That's probably gonna be the end of the video too. Because I'm just gonna finish my point and I'm gonna go to the store. And on my way back, it's likely that I won't be recording anything. So, but basically, to finish all of these fucking points off, is it's fucked up how people can be convinced that they are deficient because they don't feel emotions that people aren't supposed to feel in the first place, right? It's fucked up how people can accept these emotions as something that they should be feeling, and it's also really amazing that the degree to which people are social and empathetic extends to it doesn't even make sense anymore to be social and empathetic. People will literally empathize with an idea, and people will literally want to have the same emotions as a concept does, right? And I think that's a great and terrible thing about humans, and I'm sad about how that is getting exploited so fucking intensely that people don't even have like any fucking concept of what emotions are supposed to be like. And My Little Pony and Slice of Life anime are radical praxis and make you a better person. Yeah, that's my fucking point. That's my fucking point.